Why did the Soviet Union collapse in 1991? It was because of its ruinous war in Afghanistan, 1979 to 1989. Today, Russia is again involved in a ruinous war, this time in Ukraine. Its military performance has been pathetic. It has thrown hundreds of thousands of soldiers at Ukraine for meager returns. It is militarily exhausted. If the West was any longer able to generate proper military men, such as General George S. Patton and General Douglas MacArthur, they would be demanding a march on Moscow, a full-scale invasion of Russia to finish it off. Russia, in conventional military terms, would collapse immediately. Putin's sole card left would be to threaten nuclear war, and no Russians are going to risk annihilation to prop up Putin's ego. Yevgeny Prigozhin, a Russian mercenary leader and oligarch, launched a rebellion in June 2023, captured Rostov-on-Don, and advanced toward Moscow. With a bit more conviction, he could have toppled Putin, but he lost his nerve. Putin has no military strength left. He is already having to take troops from North Korea to shore up his position. If the West doubled its assistance to Ukraine, Ukraine would defeat Russia and Putin would be deposed. One more heave and this war would be over, in favor of the West. Putin has no more cards to play. Well, apart from his number one card, he has his top asset in the White House. Joe Biden's foreign policy was that Putin must be defeated. This was consistent with American foreign policy for the last 80 years regarding Russia. Trump's foreign policy is that Putin must not be defeated under any circumstances. This is the inversion of American foreign policy. Rather than tell Putin that he was a dictator and had no cards to play, Trump instead told Ukraine's President Zelensky that he was a dictator and had no cards to play. No loyal American could possibly adopt such a position. But a Russian spy certainly could, and of course would. This is blatant treason against the USA and the West. Russia, just when it was on the verge of the collapse, got a gift from heaven. An intervention from US President Donald Trump, who effectively demanded the surrender of Ukraine, yet didn't ask for a single concession from Putin. Instead, he praised Putin to the sky, said how much he admired, respected, and trusted him, and whined about how much he and Putin had gone through. Trump's primary policy seems to be to slag off Biden, Obama, and Hillary Clinton, rather than take any action against a man charged with war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide, none of which is ever mentioned by Trump. He is making the USA look demented. Trump treats Putin as if he has a full hand when Putin's hand is actually empty. Putin has no cards to play. If he had to keep this war going, Russia would collapse, which is exactly the foreign policy objective of the West for the last 80 years. Yet Trump has 100% reversed that. Why? Well, it's obvious. Trump is a Russian agent exactly as revealed back in 2016. It's utterly bizarre how many conspiracy theorists and inside dopesters there are who more or less actively support Putin and repeat all of his talking points, and put themselves in the same camp as America's far-right Christian Zionists, who are all cheerleaders for Putin. They blame this war on anyone other than its actual instigator, Putin himself, a war criminal and a man who robbed the Russian people blind when he took over power, just as his corrupt former boss Boris Yeltsin did. The future of Russia in any sane world was always an obvious one: to move closer to Europe, exactly as Ukraine has tried to do, and Georgia. Both have been stopped by Putin, a malignant narcissist and megalomaniac who believes he is some sort of Peter the Great. But it wasn't always like this. At one time, Putin wanted to join NATO. Isn't it amazing how people conveniently forget these things? Jennifer Rankin wrote in The Guardian, Vladimir Putin wanted Russia to join NATO, but did not want his country to have to go through the usual application process and stand in line with a lot of countries that don't matter, according to a former Secretary General of the Transatlantic Alliance. George Robertson, a former Labor Defense Secretary who led NATO between 1999 and 2003, said, Putin made it clear at their first meeting that he wanted Russia to be part of Western Europe. They wanted to be part of that secure, stable, prosperous West that Russia was out of at the time, he said. The Labour peer recalled an early meeting with Putin, who became Russian president in 2000. Putin said, "When are you going to invite us to join NATO?" And Robertson said, "Well, we don't invite people to join NATO, they apply to join NATO." And he said, "Well, we're not standing in line with a lot of countries that don't matter." The account chimes with what Putin told the late David Frost in a BBC interview shortly before he was first inaugurated as Russian president more than 21 years ago. Putin told Frost he would not rule out joining NATO if and when Russia's views are taken into account as those of an equal partner. He told Frost it was hard for him to visualize NATO as an enemy. Russia is part of the European culture, and I cannot imagine my own country in isolation from Europe and what we often call the civilized world. Putin was actually right about all of that. The West should have treated Russia with enormously more respect and rolled out the red carpet for it. Instead, it caused narcissistic injury to a pathological narcissist, and now millions of people have had to pay the price. Politics would be conducted much more effectively with psychiatrists instead of politicians. The world is now going to be convulsed for years trying to find political means to handle both Trump and Putin, two egregious, malignant narcissists. You cannot use politics to address the incredibly serious personality disorder shared by these two men. The world has to keep paying the price because crazy people are so good at conning the masses and getting elected to high office. Never forget, Adolf Hitler was a democratically elected politician. He told everyone in advance that he despised democracy, and he still got elected. So it goes. When are people going to wake up? The world is mad not because the people are mad, but because its leaders are mad. And they prove it every day with their mad decisions, which wreak havoc on the people and often cost people their lives for no reason. Stop being suckers. Open your eyes to what is really going on.